play a football match without fans that get me. It can be the greatest game in the world. There's no people there to watch, it becomes nothing.
Bhoys in!
The game is over. The Rebels have won.
Champions. That's who we are.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Jungle Jumps podcast. Just looking back at that intro, and it looks like a lot of things have changed since the last time the Jungle Jumps went live. But here we are today. It's Monday. Tuesday, isn't it? Tuesday, the 2nd of December. We've got myself, we've got McGinty, and we've got our new friend Andy from Sweden who's joining us. Guys, great to have you on. It's good to be back. We've got so much shit to talk about. Firstly, Andy, how are you? Thank you for joining us tonight. What's been happening?
All good.
Excellent.
Yeah, I hope you will understand my Swinglish here.
Swinglish. So, Andy, we have McGinty has managed to recruit you to join the podcast. So obviously you've been a Celtic fan for a number of years. How was it that you started to get attracted to supporting Celtic?
Henrik. Short and easy answer.
Excellent.
He was something else. Not just the best footballer, my favorite footballer ever, but just a wonderful man. And I had the pleasure to meet him a decade or so back. So wonderful player.
And what made you go for Henrik rather than Zlatan?
Zlatan is very good, but you can't ignore the ego.
I've got a question for you there, Andy, and I didn't mean this to happen so quickly that we start asking you 20 questions on Swedish football here. Just as Zlatan gets brought up, how is that in Sweden? Because a lot of people like myself see Zlatan and the ego and think that the ego is justified because he's such a good player and it's part of his persona, his character. Does that translate to a lot of Swedish people? And is it just yourself that feels Larsson is the better person, better player, or is that generally accepted as well?
I would say that the older generation, 40 plus or something, most people would say that Henrik is the best player, but the younger generation, most would say Zlatan.
Mm-hmm.
And but I love them together when they played together in the national team. That was something else.
Aye. Sweden have been a fantastic team. I think, did Sweden put England out in the 92 Euros in the qualifiers for that? I think it was it Martin Dallin or Thomas Brolin, one of those players who scored, and they put England out of the 92 Euros. I don't know. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, I think so. But in all honesty, I'm born in '85, and in my when I was like 5 to 10 years old, everything was ice hockey in Sweden. Football was just it wasn't close to as big as it is now.
Yeah.
And so I don't know that much, in all honesty, about the national team that early.
That's fair enough, and that makes sense. From a Scandinavian country, right? McGinty, long time no see. It's not like I've not seen you in 2 years. We have been doing other podcasts in between, but how are you? And by the way, we do need to update that intro.
Yeah, I totally forgot that intro was actually built into being the intro as such on the software. Very much aware that we are probably going to get this podcast blanked on YouTube after we've went live, because the whole copyright issues on that track from the website that I was using, they've put that behind a premium paywall, so we're going to get ball sacked for that one. But it is what it is. This is a soft relaunch, guys. We are back. We will be back. Will we be back next Tuesday? I don't know, is the short answer. Will we be back come the new year? Absolutely, we will. We just wanted to obviously get Andy on board, wet Andy's tools a little bit, get him used to it. No real pressure, and just get ourselves back out there. I think it was Plunge brought it up in the comments. So we're just going to bring this out really, really quickly, keep it nice and clean and short. Nothing bad happened with Endless Sales, just the podcast came to a kind of natural end of how a lot of commitments were going. But myself and Gavin and young James, who's not with us tonight, we're still itching to keep going, so we revived the Jungle Gyms. It never way, but it was easy enough just to get all the login details back up and running. Hence, the intro was still there, because I forgot it was actually hard to link to it. I'll fix it.
There's no gossip to give anyone about the Endless Sales coming to an end. It was just a lot of the guys, just like family commitments and things like that. Availability was just getting difficult, and that might happen. That happens to everybody, to be honest. But the rest of us still wanted to kind of continue in one shape or another, and it just felt that the most appropriate time to go back to the Jungle Gyms platform. But to everybody in the comments so far and the familiar names, thank you very much for tuning in tonight and watching us talk shite. So let's get into it. It seems like the last time we actually did a podcast, so much has happened. The fact that Brendan Rodgers left, shots fired by Dermot Desmond, and the fascinating polarization of opinions between Celtic fans, the battle between the bedwetters and the board apologists. It makes a lot of interesting discourse online. But the football still goes on, and the fact that Martin Neal has came into the club as caretaker manager, and obviously on Wednesday it's going to be his final game. And it's been really quite poignant. And for a manager who left and he had his legacy intact, he was brave enough to come back to Celtic to kind of like steady us under these kind of choppy waters. Takes a brave character to do that, and Martin Neal has really, really stood up to the fore. So I guess we're going to kind of start off the show tonight talking about the legend that is Martin Neal, and how well he's kind of acquitted himself, how he's brought everyone together. Well, it seemed like there was maybe division. There was people who wanted out the club, people who didn't look interested, and he's got everybody working together. People who didn't look as if they were ever going to get a game for Celtic came in like a fairy tale story for people like Callum Osmond, albeit he's injured now. But what a week that man had. He made his debut, and then the following game he scored against Rangers, and then the next game he gets injured. It's just been it's been a weird season. Like somebody actually, I'll pass it over to one of you guys after I finish this, but I was watching a Celtic podcast today, and one of the guys said, can you imagine if like Netflix had done a Celtic documentary from the start of the season and they filmed all the drama that's happened from start up until now? It'd be like the highest viewing football documentary ever, just for the amount of stuff that's actually happened. So getting back to Martin Neal, I don't think there could have been a better man, somebody who's close to Celtic, who knows the game, who knows what's required, he knows the fans and the culture. And it's quite interesting because whenever you compare the playing squads of Martin Neal's time at Parkhead, where you had like so many big characters, giants playing for us, the legend himself, Henry Larsson, compared to now, well, we've got a team in disarray. We guys, no physicality, but somehow he's managed to pull out result after result. McGinty, I want to get your thoughts. What's it been like for you as a Celtic fan watching this kind of resurgence for Celtic, but obviously the romantic element of seeing Martin Neal return to the squad or return to the club?
Before I talk about Martin Neal, I just want to point out that if Netflix ever did come chapping on the door of Celtic to ask to make a documentary, I think we'd still be waiting for Michael Nicholson to find the keys to unlock the door and speak to them. It would take them that fucking long. We'd probably have a documentary in 2035. Martin O'Neill, though, I'm going to get this out, and people know I like a rant, and people know where I stand usually on anything board related. So I'll try not to be too negative. But on Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney and Mark Fotheringham, they've been absolutely outstanding this past month. Martin O'Neill gets that award for Manager of the Month for November. I think that should go to all three of them. They've been nothing short of fantastic, nothing short of stepping up to the mark.
Gavin Strachan as well.
I don't know what you just said there. Yeah, Gavin Strachan as well. The entire team have stepped up. Without getting into the drama of what happened that brought them to the position they're in just now, they've all been fantastic. They've steadied a ship that needed steadied. We've changed small tweaks to make the football a little bit more exciting. I think in spells, you look at the St Mirren game, you look at points during the Hibs game, you look at the Midtjylland game as well, you can tell what the real issues are about the squad. It is lacking for various reasons: recruitment, injuries, just general lack of depth. But Martin and Sean and the guys have brought a little tweak that's actually brought positivity back into the squad. You're seeing players in slightly more natural positions performing a lot better. You're seeing players getting reintroduced. You mentioned Callum Osmond there, Gavin, and I had to chuckle as quiet as I could, remembering my mic's on, because I forgot about him for a moment. Yeah. And as soon as you said it, you suddenly realised, fuck, that week happened a month ago in this spell. And he was a bright spark. But even without him as a bright spark for the last 3-4 weeks, the squad and the team have still performed, in my opinion, as admirably and as best as they can, considering all the other stuff, during the summer, recruitment, injuries, yada, yada, yada. For the here now, the management and the coaching team have been superb, and all credit to them, absolutely.
Yeah. If there has ever been a new manager bounce that has been impressive, it must be this one. And in the end of Rodgers here, you could see maybe 1 or 2 players putting up a 7 out of 10 performance on a rare occasion. But when O'Neill took over, every single player from the first 11 to the entire squad have performed very, very well. Very impressive.
I don't think there's been a crazy tactical shift, but it's just like the presence of the man, of Martin O'Neill, is just managed to kind of bring something out. When you're talking about really, you weren't even getting many 7 out of 10s from certain players, and it just seems like everybody is giving that extra bit of effort. It's great to see. And another kind of part of the Martin O'Neill effect is the media interviews. Everybody's eating out the palm of his hand right now. And if you just kind of go back to what it was like under Brendan Rodgers, now there was a lot of tension in the Brendan Rodgers press conferences before he left. A lot of that wasn't his doing. A lot of that was him answering about the conditions of the club at that moment in time, which he wasn't the main architect of. But the atmosphere between then and now is night and day, and you're seeing players contributing, playing as teammates, not as individuals, and they look as if they want to be part of the collective, which is great. So since Martin O'Neill's came in, but apart from a loss away to Midtjylland, apart from that, the results have been exceptional. We've won every game domestically, and of course he's delivered a very rare result for Celtic, which is a win away in Europe against Feyenoord. McGinty, what would you say is like some of maybe obviously the semi-final, the victory against the Huns at Hampden, that was a big one. We weren't at our best, but we still managed to come through. is there any particular moment, standout game that kind of sticks with you as something that we wouldn't have achieved under Brendan Rodgers, but it's the Martin O'Neill effect which just kind of saw us through that?
Not one specific game. I think if you take even the semi final, the St Mirren game, the Hibs game, they're late winners, they're injury time, extra time winners, their Hibs game there 2-1, kind of holding out for the last half hour almost. They're the moments where I think this season under Brendan Rodgers we would have seen different results. It would have. It's a collective of all of the games, to the point that the game against Hibs, even though we're holding out at 2-1, under Rodgers earlier this season, I would have been fearful that we drop points. But see, with Martin O'Neill there at 2-1, yeah, you're still thinking, Christ, a third goal really would fucking help us right now. But I wasn't panicking. I wasn't flustering. It was still a doubt there, but you were a little bit more comforted that it's Martin O'Neill driving that ship. And I think it's the collective of that, just kind of steadiness, the confidence that he brings to the players, the belief that the players now have in themselves. You can see a 2-1 away to Hibs as a fair result, considering, again, everything else that's went on this season. I think it's just that collective. But if you're going to ask me to pick one game specifically, then it's got to be the away game to Feyenoord, to actually come away with a reasonably good performance. And I say that because we have to factor in that Feyenoord are pretty pants just now. They're on bad form. But the way that we performed, the manner of our goals and the manner of our victory, I think it was a very fitting way to kind of get to the tail end of his short spell with us, to say, look, you've achieved a couple of things. You got to his final, you got that away win, and hopefully tomorrow he gets his another victory as well and kind of signs it off nicely.
Yeah, for me, the Feyenoord game was absolutely crazy. I was so happy. But the most impressive for me, I must say, it's the Hibs game. That's a typical game that we would drop points in otherwise.
Yeah. I saw a statistic just before the game kicked off, and it said that Celtic had only won 5 out of the last 18 games at Easter Road. Because normally, whenever you think of away grounds, especially Edinburgh, you think you don't fancy playing away against Hearts because you're always in for a tough game. And sometimes it's just kind of easy to forget how difficult it is to win Easter Road. And that, on Sunday, it showed how difficult it was. The fact that we got those 2 goals together so early in the first half, and then kind of weathered the storm in the second half, and that penalty as well. Did any of you guys think it was a penalty for Scales? That really annoyed me. Whenever I heard his interview, he said he wasn't surprised that he never said it was a penalty, but he said, I felt it would go to VAR, and I felt that they would give it if they saw it back. I was a wee bit frustrated about that. I thought that it wasn't a clear-cut penalty, and the fact to get a yellow card as well, I thought was a wee bit harsh, but maybe it's just green-tinted specs. Andy, what do you think about that? What was your verdict?
Pure cheating. No, never a penalty for me. Never. But on the other hand, if it was the other way around, I would probably want a penalty. But I'm not so sure. Maybe a 50-50, to be honest.
Do you think we got lucky with the Donovan tackle? For me, I didn't feel it was conclusive enough to be a red card, but obviously you're going to get plenty of the people in the media to say that should have been a red card. For me, it looked like a straight-on yellow card, but again, maybe I'm biased.
But what do you think about the headbutt? Wasn't that a penalty? For me, we won the ball first.
There was a penalty given, I think it was against Kilmarnock maybe at the weekend, or was it the weekend before? Well, kind of a similar thing happened and a penalty was given. I don't know about that head clash. If we won it first, if we won the header first, and then Yang gets hit in the head, then yeah, I think it should be a penalty.
Yeah.
If Yang clearly won it first, then it should be. But there's just so many kind of contentious decisions right now where you'll see one thing happen in one game, and the referee will make one decision, but then a different game he'll make a different decision again. And then Willie Collum has got to answer for the inconsistencies with referees in the Scottish game. So it just seems like it's up and down. You just get different outcomes for the same incident. It's frustrating.
Yeah, the refs are an absolute disaster. I had it was funny. I had a couple of mates over a while back, and I watched a Celtic game with them, and they actually laughed out loud when they saw the ref, all the calls they are making.
And the other one, the Engels goal, that guy could have been red carded for that. Like he kicks him in his head. Like it's happened to us before when you kick someone in the head, and I'm not even kicking them in the head when you get a red card. But it is what it is. Andy, one other thing to ask you, talking about Martin O'Neill. So obviously Wednesday night is going to be his final game. In fact, before we even do that, I'm focusing so much on Martin O'Neill that it's kind of remiss of me not to acknowledge the work that Sean Maloney has done, and even Mark Fotheringham as well. See, whenever those two and Martin O'Neill joined the club as caretakers, did you have any kind of concerns? Did you think that, I'm not too sure about Maloney coaching the team or Fotheringham? Obviously, we know what Martin O'Neill does, and his abilities is best about speaking to people and the kind of overall management rather than the day-to-day coaching. Were you at all nervous that things weren't going too well under Rodgers and we're bringing in somebody like Sean Maloney? Did you doubt his credentials?
The only worry I had was that they were planning to give Maloney the managerial job.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I think, he gets some criticism for the job he did that was Wigan and Hibs. But most managers would have troubles coaching those teams. So I think they have done an absolutely amazing job. And yeah.
Aye. And McGinty, I guess that leads us on to the next thing where some people are getting bitten by that nostalgia bug and they would like Martin O'Neill to extend his stay. Now, he's categorically said that Wednesday will be his final game, but a lot of people have been wanting him to say, like, if it's not broken, don't fix it, that sort of thing. I'm not of that kind of mind. I think that we need a clear plan going forward, but obviously Martin O'Neill is getting results one way or another, and some people don't want to kind of break that spell. So what's your thoughts on Martin O'Neill extending his stay as a caretaker? And maybe a further question, would you like to see him have some sort of role in the club going further down the line like a director of football?
I'm actually quite happy that both him and Sean have been quite firm that this is interim. And I get what Andy was saying, that there's that fear that Sean might have got the manager's gig. And I think every single one of us, knowing how Celtic operate, expected the two of them to come in. They do well, and we would take that option of, look, we'll just move Martin upstairs a little bit as a consultant to Maloney. Maloney just sees out the season. There generally was that fear. But both of them said categorically from the first interview that this was interim, this was short term. Sean's going to go back to the pathway manager. I believe, or I would think that might be a bit different. I think he might have a more prominent coaching position rather than pathway manager, but who knows? But I think it's the right thing to do. That it is just kept as interim. I don't think it was quite right the way that we kept kind of like stay another week, stay another game, and kind of kept pushing Martin a little bit further. I think reading between the lines of the tone, maybe Martin's getting a bit pissed off at being asked that question every single time, but also maybe, and this is my biasness towards the board, maybe he's getting pissed off at being asked by the board, going to stay another fucking week, because he's 73, guys. He's no spring chicken anymore. And as much as it's been really great seeing him on the sidelines, being animated, wearing the tracksuits and all the rest of it, you can't ask a 73-year-old guy to be being a manager of a football club, let alone Celtic, and not expect that to take a toll on him. The guy's an absolute living legend. He would hate to hear people say that to him. I'm sure I heard him on one of his interviews basically saying that term, loosely paraphrasing, that term is kept for Jock Stein and that everybody else is just a follower. And I thought that was an absolutely insane thing, like a brilliantly insane thing to hear him say, because it's such a modest, such a humbling way to look at it. He doesn't see himself as a legend here, and he's not planning on sticking this out any longer. So I think it is the right thing to do, not to keep prolonging it. I just wish we get the new manager in. Let's admit it, it's going to be Nancy, and we get him rolling quicker. Will it mean that Martin stays on in some sort of capacity? I would doubt it. I don't see Martin being that kind of guy to kind of pass the torch or coddle somebody along in that sense. I 100% expect him to be on the phone to Nancy. I expect him to say on the Passover, here's all the notes that I've taken in the last month. Here's what I think are the good players and things to watch out for. I expect a good Passover, and I expect there might be some communication between the two of them, but it'll be off the record down the side. I don't think Martin's got any intention to be in the club in that way.
Yeah, he was asked that. I think it was today in the press conference, and the journalist asked, will you be giving Nancy any advice? And his reply, in typical O'Neill fashion, was, he says he'll give the new guy his opinion, and it's up to him whether he takes it on board or not. It's up to him what he wants to do with that. And I think that's the best thing, because you don't advise new managers coming in. You don't say this player's a wrong and this player's a good one. Nancy will be watching the squad already. He'll be watching tons of videos, so he'll have done his homework. But certainly I'm sure he will probably take on board whatever opinions Martin O'Neill has got. I guess another thing would be what's that for Paddy? Robert De Niro's about 80. And Hadawayne. Robert De Niro's also got Trump derangement syndrome too. I think he's losing it a wee bit. So another thing to talk about is the players who've kind of really came on. Andy, who would you say has been, in your opinion, the most impressive player under Martin O'Neill, if you kind of look back at previous performances under Brendan Rodgers? Is there any one particular person who sticks out for you?
I have really liked Sarachi. He has been really good, and it's a tough question, because there have been so many good under O'Neill, Scales and and you can have argument for McGregor, because McGregor was hopeless under Rodgers in the end, but he even to the point that you thought that he was done. But under Martin O'Neill, he had been like prime McGregor.
Mm-hmm. I think McGregor's been given a little bit more protection as well, because we always see whenever people are counter-attacking against us, it seems like McGregor doesn't have the ability to stop it. He's a bit of a wee guy. He's not the fastest. He's not the strongest. He's not a hard tackler. But I think Engels has kind of came slightly back, and Hatati's pushed up a little bit. And I think that's compliment McGregor. Engels looks better, and Hatati looks better as well.
Yeah.
For me, one player that I'm really happy with seeing is, remember the last game of Brendan Rodgers' time? That was a 3-1 defeat to Hearts. Cameron Carter-Vickers was injured, and who does Brendan Rodgers play? He plays Dane Murray, who had a shocker of a game. Now, Trusty was available. Trusty wasn't played, but now Trusty's been playing, and he just looks like a confident, hungry, agile, competent defender. he looks like the type of defender that would play for Martin O'Neill back in the early 2000s. Tall, agile, aggressive. He is playing how Martin O'Neill wants defenders to play, and I've been really impressed with that.
Yeah, I agree with that. And what do we do when Carter Vickers is back? Do you break the partnership between Trusty and Scales?
I guess the other question would be if the new formation might be 3-4-3, then maybe all three of them can play.
Yeah.
But then your question is who's back up to that? Dane Murray. So does that mean that we need to get more centre backs, or how does Kieran Tierney fit into that? So if we're playing three centre backs, then I'm sure all of them will get a game. But it does throw up a lot of questions. It's a good problem that Trusty is giving managers whenever Vickers comes back, because I think a lot of us have not been impressed with how Trusty has played since he signed for Celtic. Scales is scales, you know. So
yeah, the way I see it is that individually, Carter Vickers is the best defender we have, but the best partnership we have is Trusty Scales, if that makes sense.
It does. McGinty, you're not a fan of Scales. I'm putting words in your mouth. Pardon me. What's your thoughts on the defensive partnership? And I guess another kind of open question: any particular player has excited you since Martin O'Neill has returned to the club?
I'd have to agree with Andy probably on both those questions, both those points. And yourself there with the midfield. I think all three in the midfield have done well since O'Neill's came in. And as I alluded to earlier on, it's small tweaks, a small slight repositioning of players, even just where on the pitch they're playing, which sounds like a really stupid thing when you say that out loud. But as you said, Gavin, Engels has came back deeper, which I'll be honest, I never watched Engels before he came to Celtic, but by all accounts, he did play a bit more deeper when he was at Augsburg, so he's probably playing in a slightly more familiar, natural position. Hatate's now been allowed to go more into that number 10 without being an out-and-out number 10. And it's allowed Callum McGregor to be more the link between the two. You still see Callum coming really deep and being almost a third centre-back at times, but he's able to move fluidly up and down that pitch a lot more, which I think suits all three of them a little bit better. And that's one of the problems that even myself and James so much in the group chats and on here for a number of months. All our players are the same kind of player. Not one of our players, for me, is an out-and-out defensive midfielder, and not one of our players, aside from Nygren at this point, is an out-and-out number 10. They're all number 8s, with some with a wee bit more of an attacking flair, some with a slightly more defensive kind of sturdiness to them, but nobody's an out-and-out expert in their positions. And under Rodgers for the last few months and the end of last season as well, it felt like we're just putting three people straight in the middle of the park and just again saying get on with it, but not actually telling them what to do and letting them. It seemed all a bit confusing. But what O'Neill's done is allowed those three specifically just to get the natural positions a bit more. But let's go back to Nygren again, because he did play the number 10 role for a couple of games before. I don't know, did he take an injury? Is that why he's out of the picture just now? Or is it just because Hatate's been favoured? But I thought Nygren started looking really fucking good as that kind of number 10, really a supporting secondary striker, almost number 10, kind of more like a Rogic kind of player, but a slightly different style to it, rather than the Hatate number 10 or the kind of Callum McGregor when he was younger days with Dryford. Nygren looks like a proper that player in the whole. So I'd like to see him come back. When it comes to the defensive partnerships, I would agree with Andy. The Scales and Trusty is probably the best partnership we've got just now. But again, like you say as well, Gavin, the formation change is likely to go through at the back. So I think there's a place for all three of them. Naturally, Carter Vickers would go to the right side, Scales would go to the left side. And Trusty, yes, he's left-footed, but he clearly can play on the right side. So I think Trusty would be absolutely fine in the middle. The thing that we need to be mindful of that is that there is no real quality backup defender. So if one of them gets injured, it throws a spanner in that entire thing. I like Murray. He's not quite there yet, though. I think we would, if we're going to stick with a three at the back like that, I would rather go out and get another two centre backs at least one, but I'd rather two, because I don't quite like the idea of Tierney and Johnson becoming centre backs with a secondary kind of role to be a wing back, because that's not quite, in my head, that's not quite a 3-4-3. If you've got Kieran Tierney on the left side of the centre backs and Alistair Johnson on the right side of the centre backs, they're not really acting as centre backs if they're still going to have that natural desire to go down the wing. So I'd rather it be three actual centre backs. But yeah.
But it looks good on paper to have Tierney as a centre back and Andy Roberts on as a wing back.
That does, but more so because it's on the same side. I think it's a bit more when it's all, yeah. I'd rather out backs to do that. What I'm excited about though, if that was to, let's play it through with the Nancy formation of 3-4-3. If you were to play Scales, Trusty, Carter Vickers as your centre back, you could play. And I'm kind of half wondering if this kind of fits in with the Ange kind of vetted fullback thing. You could play left midfield and right midfield with Tierney and Johnson, who would get up to support the front three, but also equally come back and make it a back five when we really needed to, because both of those guys are quite attacking, and Srirachi naturally would fit in there as well. But it would leave you front three could still be quite pacey, quite kind of formidable, because a lot of people think you play three at the back, you're going to lose your wingers, but you can still have Jota on the left, Tanecki on the right, Maeda in the middle, and that could still look electric. It's going to be the midfield two that are going to be the what dictates what happens. They need to be on it, or at least one of the centre backs has to start becoming a really good ball playing, passing centre back to actually step up to the midfield, because you're going to need an extra body in there.
Can I say, talking about Kieran Tierney, I know that as Celtic fans, we try not to be overly critical, and we like to kind of give the guy time. And you can actually saw it whenever he scored for Celtic at Parkhead a few weeks ago under Martin O'Neill. He took a shot from outside the box, and the way that he celebrated it felt like he was getting a lot of emotion out. But the way that I was seeing it, it was a kind of, he was happy with that, because it was kind of maybe proving some doubters wrong, or maybe proving himself right in terms of like pushing away any doubts that he had. And I guess what I'm driving at here is the Kieran Tierney that we've seen this season is not the Kieran Tierney that we remember from several years ago at Celtic Park. And tying that in with this formation, the 3-4-3, which is, from what we're told, Nancy's favoured formation. As a wing back, you need to be explosive, and Tierney is not explosive. Now, he may somehow work towards that. I think he's 27, 28 now. He might get that back, but just on the evidence so far, and we've been alternating Srirachi and Tierney, so it's not as if like Tierney's been getting flogged until the 90th minute every game. He's been rotating, and we've been managing him, but I just don't see that athleticism. And I think that potentially, if that's the only way that we can utilise Tierney on the wing-back position, potentially he might be a casualty under the new regime, which is unthinkable, because he just came back. And again, we've got that kind of romance, the returning player. But where does Tierney fit into that? I guess we'll find out. We'll find out exactly how Nancy wants to play. And there's obviously that risk of trying to put too much change too soon, because if you change everything overnight, then it might not work. We might start losing points. So that change has to be gradual. But I just think in the long term, from what I'm seeing so far of Tierney, I don't think he's got that athleticism to go up and down the pitch for the attacking and defensive responsibility. I think you need an athlete. Johnson does that on the right. Johnson is an athlete. I think Tierney's a better footballer than Johnson, but at the moment, I don't see that tank, that engine from Tierney.
I thought it was interesting. Chris Sutton said something about that he thinks it's psychological with Tierney. It feels like he's going on 60-70%. Like he's afraid to get that hamstring problems.
Yeah, at times it does feel like that, because we we built it up all summer, didn't we? Even before summer, when we knew he was inevitably coming back, that he'll not be able to play 90 minutes straight away. We need to build his match fitness up, and it looks like he's just never quite got there, to the point that is he playing within himself? Because he's got that doubt, Andy, as you say, is he overthinking it? Is he playing 67% of himself so he doesn't hit that hamstring injury again? But then, as a 70% fit and effort continue what we need, is that good enough? Especially when you look at somebody like Srirachi, who, he's only a loan deal just now, but Srirachi looks like he could play 90 minutes twice a week and looks quite capable.
Yeah, but on the other hand, I think we judge him on the expectation we have.
Yeah.
With all right, of course, but in all fairness, he have been pretty decent still, I must say.
Aye. He's not been poor. Definitely not. Just the expectation, as you say. Can I ask you about one other player? Tenekte. Has the excitement kind of died away a little bit about Tenekte? He started on the bench the past couple of games. For me, I even saw on his debut, while he is a very, very exciting player and he has the ability that most people in our squad don't have, the ability to create space, I just think that his end product is very, very hit and miss. And I was just wondering if we need to kind of temper our expectations on. We signed him for Brøndby, was that right? Yeah.
To Nekti.
Yeah.
Hammarby in Sweden, and here in Sweden, most people said that he's all running and dribbling, but no end product.
Mm-hmm.
And I read online on a forum. I thought it was quite funny, but also disrespectful as well. But that he's the Celtic version of Ryan Kent.
I read that as well, Andy. I was going to bring it up because as soon as I read it, you're like, oh fuck, it actually is true. He got 1 goal, 0 assists. He's got all the talent there to run up and down that wing. He's got a bit of trickery. He gets to the byline, but there's zero end product at this stage. I think he gets a little bit of benefit of the doubt considering the overall situation of the first half of this season so far. But if he's going to play a big part in the new manager's kind of formation stuff, then he's going to have to pull that finger out pretty fucking quickly, because Jota's not too far away. We're now in December. Jota's, January, February at the latest, and he's going to be back, and Jota's not going to... He's not going to hang around waiting for his turn. He's just going to take it. So Tenekte needs to do something to keep his place.
But Balikwisha, oh my god!
I forgot he even played for us.
I've got a news update for you. So he's been called up to the Congo squad, and he's going to be Congo play the African Nations games on the 23rd of December, the 27th of December, and the 30th of December. Now, if you don't know, we've got a shitload of games in December. It's going to be like game after game after game, probably a game every 3 days for Celtic in December. And you're going to need everybody who's fit. And it looks like we're going to be losing Balikwisha, which out of everybody is probably not a big loss, because he...
Absolutely not.
Mark Neely even admitted it in his press conference. He said that he's not really been given a chance under him, but he probably will under the new manager. For me, Balikwisha, I don't know what he does. I don't know what he brings to the table. A winger who cannot beat a player with pace, doesn't have the skill to beat someone. Don't know what he does. Andy, what does he do?
By the way, have Iheanacho been called up?
I don't know. I've not seen anything yet. I've not seen anything about Tenekte either, because he's declared for Tunisia, of course. So I don't know if either of them will be called away. You would imagine that Nigeria probably got a better playing squad than most of the African nations. But Balikwisha anyway, he'll be away.
Yeah. We risk of losing 3 players in January. Then
I know, and it's that's like the kind of main fixture congestion in the calendar as well, so it's not ideal. So McGinty, in terms of Wilfred Nancy coming in, it's pretty much been confirmed. The delay has just been about visa issues. What's your expectations in terms of what you've heard about him from other sources? The more you hear about him, are you getting excited, or are you still kind of a wee bit cautious?
I'm very much still cautious. I've seen videos of his games, not full games, highlights obviously. Videos where people try to, draw the little circles and the lines as the plays are playing out to show how his team kind of fluidly move on the pitch, and it all looks good and all looks nice. And there's forward passing, there's sideways passing, there's triangles, the space opens up, and they get forward really quickly, and it looks good. But I'm instantly looking at it and thinking that looks good in the MLS, not because the MLS is shit, not seeing that at all. It is ranked higher than the SPFL, so we'll not go down that route. But it works well in the MLS because the teams are all fairly even and they all try and play football against each other. So when I'm hearing things like he waits for his moment to hit that press and get that forward and find the space and yada yada, sounds all fantastic. But when you watch it, the opponents have 4 or 5 players in his defensive third sort of thing. So they've committed 4 or 5 players forward. He then creates those triangles and those couple of passes, a sudden burst of pace or speed and tempo in the game, and the forward passes happen and it creates a space. But that only comes because 4 guys have committed forward on the opposing team. St. Mirren aren't going to do that. Motherwell aren't going to do that. They're going to put one up there for a counter and that's it. And then you're going to be playing against 2 park buses, the low block, 9 men, 10 men behind the ball situation. I worry that as good as his football might look at first, that if he gets frustrated with the low block in Scottish football, it ends up becoming the horseshoe passing that we've seen under Brendan Rodgers, where we pass it down the left flank, the space isn't there, pass it back, pass it to the right, it's no there, pass it back, pass it around. I just need to make sure, I just want to see that he actually has the ability to make the players make the space for themselves. It's going to be really fucking tight in the kind of the opponent's half in the final third. I need to see him make that space in the same way that Ange would make that space. Abada and Jota breaking that line down the left side, Kyle running on the shoulder of the line sort of thing. Sometimes there's a lot of offsides. It happens, but because everybody's moving at that one time as a unit, as the tempo's so high under Ange, you can break those lines really easily. A lot of offsides, of course, but you can break them and get a lot of goals. I just hope that he goes that way when the low blocks appear too much, rather than the Rodgers way of just being possession for the sake of possession.
Yeah, and the teams in Scotland have become very good to play against that type of system.
Yeah,
and my main concern is if you read the stats, I think Nancy's Columbus Crew, they are rank 1 in short passes and rank 1 in passes completed, and they are the last in the league on long passes. So they almost never play a long pass.
So again, does that make me worry? I don't know either way, but does that make me worry that it's going to be a lot of Carter Vickers to Cal McGregor to Scales to Carter Vickers to Scales to Kieran Tierney passes? Or is it going to be lots of small triangle passes where it's Tierney passes it to Hatate, who passes it to Tedeki, who drives forward and slips it into TE and Actual? If it's those kind of short passes at high tempo, fantastic. If it's the other kind, yeah, he'll probably still win the league. But I'd imagine that we'll be back here in a year and a half, 2 years' time, bitching about boring football and needing to see a new manager again. If that's the way it goes.
And the stat that worried me the most, it was that they were also rank 1 in passes inside the opposition box. And in Scotland, we won't pass anything inside the box.
No, you're not getting that time or space. Absolutely.
No.
There's 9 opponents there, 10 opponents there. If you count the keeper, you're not getting that space. Not in Scottish football.
And I guess another part of the kind of tactics from what I've heard is it's almost reminiscent to Brighton in terms of the build-up, where the centre-backs have got the ball and they're just like walking with the ball and waiting for the attacker to come in to press them. And once they commit with that press, then they start kind of spreading it around and then they build up the counter-attack to get through them. There's only a few teams that might kind of be tempted to fall into that trap in Scotland. It'll be useful in Europe, but if you're talking about playing like Livingston or whatever and wanting them to press you in order to play around them, then they're not going to do that. They're just going to sit off you. And there's just been too many familiar stories of when you're playing against a team with like a low block and they've got 2 banks of 5 and you need to break them down. I think we saw under Ange where we had like real pace down the wings and we could maybe like with the full backs as well, forcing that overlap to feed in the wings and then play the ball across the face of goal. And you had people like Kyogo there to put the ball in the net. That was a really effective method to get around that. But prior to that, without that tactic, then sometimes you need a player with a little bit of genius about them. People like Paddy Roberts, or going back further, Paddy McCourt, Jota nowadays, maybe people like that who've got a unique dribbling ability where they're able to create something out of nothing. And if you don't have that individual and if you don't have the tactics that maybe Ange did, then we might be up shit creek trying to break teams down. But I don't think that Nancy is going to come into the Scottish game and he'll be like, oh my God, why are these teams playing like that? There's no way that he would have taken this job without knowing the type of football that happens in the Scottish League. He'll know that you need to be inventive to break teams down. So I don't think that he's stupid enough to fall into that trap. I think he'll know what he's up against and he'll probably have ideas in his mind of how to break that down. But I think overall, I'm looking forward to seeing how he does. And I think it's also been refreshing to find out that he's been able to bring in his own staff. I think he's bringing in maybe 2. One guy is Ampadu, his assistant manager, who he's been with for the last 2 clubs. So at least he's not coming in and we're forcing like John Kennedy upon him and telling him to work with the people that we'll provide him with. So at least he'll have some of his lieutenants, and they'll be able to kind of bring their influence to the team. How do you think, Andy, the players will react to it? Because this will be the 3rd manager now before Christmas. They've obviously really responded well to Martin O'Neill and the positivity that's been there. But now they're moving on again and they need to justify themselves, justify their place to a new manager. How do you think the players like that will respond?
That I got to say that is my main concern. If you look at it, you have most of the players that was here under Ange. They are still here, and then Rodgers came in and played something fairly similar to Ange, possession type of football, and then O'Neill took over, and it is much more relaxed. Players have free roles.
Yeah.
No, they don't have to press like Maeda does every game. So and some of them, they are looking to get out of the club, and then in comes Nancy and puts on that extreme high pressure. It's from what I can understand, it's even more type of pressing football than Ange played. How will the players react to that? That is my main concern. Are they willing to put in that work?
You think the hamstrings are bad just now? If that's how it's going to be pressing, because remember when Ange first came in, the players were dropping like flies at times with the amount of pressure they had, and I guess the lack of fitness at times as well. This could be interesting. If it works, though, I know you've probably moved on a little bit, guys, so I do apologise. But if Nancy comes in and I fully expect he's probably going to be good enough, and the squad is going to be good enough to see a season and be champions again. But if it really does work, it could be fucking fantastic. It could be great. But there has to be that doubt and worry, and we can't keep saying things like, "Oh, nobody knew about Ange." Yeah, that's true. But very famous managers have been failures at clubs and then moved on elsewhere and been great successes. Players do it all the time. Timo Pukki, shite here, fantastic at Norwich. Likewise, we get some players who look absolutely dead and buried down south. Scott Sinclair, come up here, superb. One of the best players in that era for a year or two was Scott Sinclair. You can't judge a manager because of where he comes from, and you can't just judge a manager because one guy worked 3 years ago means that this guy's going to work this time. It doesn't work that way. You need to let Wilfred Nancy come in, and we need to judge him once he's here. But we can definitely have doubts, and we can definitely have podcasts talking about the merits of how good he may or may not be, and any concerns we have, because it's natural. We're going to have concerns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he opens up a big and a realistic market in the MLS, and I'm pretty sure he knows the South American market as well.
Oh, that's going to get me a hard on.
Yeah.
I've got a great thing for South America. I mean, Diego Laxalt was a fantastic player. He's just underrated and underused. And poor Bernabe, fucking best left back out of Argentina in decades, and we wasted him.
I'm gonna sidetrack a little bit and say that if the board came out tomorrow and said that Martin O'Neill he will stay until the summer, I wouldn't be disappointed. I of course I would be happy, but then my main concern would be would O'Neill be able to bring in new players? We know he's a good manager, but do he know the market? And I don't trust our scouts or board to bring in the correct players. But then Nancy, he will I will probably trust Nancy to know what he wants.
As you said there, he knows the MLS and the North American marketplaces, and he obviously will know a lot more about the South American and Central America than what we guys would know. Let's just hope he dips into that in the same way that Ange dipped into the Japanese and the Asian market, mostly the Japanese market. Because if he can bring 3 or 4 absolute gems out of the Americas as a collective, then it'll be exciting to see it. But I would still like us to keep a hand in the Asian market as well, because there's some untapped talent in both sides of the world that we can totally take advantage of. Same with Scandinavia. There's players, not Tedeschi, but there's players in Scandinavia who are probably going under the radar to the big leagues because they've not quite made it there yet. But there's a market there surely to be tapped into.
Yeah.
I'm just reading a comment here from Denzelite. Remember, Nancy is known as the mad scientist, and I have a bad feeling the chemical reaction he's about to release on us will violently explode in his face. I certainly hope not.
The mad scientist and the fucking doctor of football together. Wow.
Again, even though we might have certain doubts about Nancy, can you tell me the last Celtic manager who failed to record a league title on the CV for us?
Technically, would that not be Tony Mowbray because he didn't see out the full season?
Don't know. There you go. There you have it. Yeah.
On a technicality, I think to take that a little step forward and try and be a bit more positive about Nancy coming in. And I'm not negative about Nancy coming in the first place. Is any negativity and doubts about him is coming because of how the club operates and how the board is. He's unknown to us, and it feels like a cheaper option that is the Tisdale connection with his assistant coach and stuff like that. So it feels like we've tapped into something which might turn out great, but it almost feels like that would be an accident rather than by through design. But to take it back to you saying, like, what was the last manager to not win a title? Ignore Mowbray for a minute. But most managers that we've had, if not all managers since
John Barnes? John Barnes?
Was Barnes after Janssen? Yeah. So yeah, probably since Barnes' tenure not been, but even Barnes when he first came in, all managers come in and look fucking fantastic for a good few months. At Celtic, we tend to pick a manager / have a squad and resources that is more than capable of winning the league. So it does tend to go quite well. It's just whether or not we can see it out beyond this season, and that he gets his way in the sense of players to fit his formation and style, which is obviously a big part of what happened with Rodgers, that he didn't get what he needed. Debate that at another date. If we support him properly going into January and especially into the summer window next year, if we support him properly, I think he will do absolutely fine. It's not that any old monk, it's not that any old idiot can be put in the hot seat and just drive the vehicle of Celtic. So I think we've got the resources. He should be able to do it. It's whether or not he can do it in style and do it convincingly. That's where we want to be excited, because at Celtic fans, you want to see attacking football. You want to see good football.
What we need as well is the structure around the club. Director of we need professionals. It might sound ridiculous, but if you look at Bodø Glimt or Midtjylland or those teams, they have the best of the best running the club. That's why I was about to jump on when you spoke about O'Neill as a sporting director or a similar role to that, and I would say no to that. Even though I love him, but we need the absolute best for those type of positions that has the experience, a long time experience.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's just people try to kind of shoehorn Mark O'Neill into a director of football. It's all about nostalgia. Like, get the guy in for that job who wants that job, who's got a passion for that job, who's forward thinking, and I guess we're guilty of not being forward thinking. We are just a kind of a reactionary club rather than being proactive. We don't plan for the future. We plan to address the problems that we've got right now, and we've got a track record of that for decades now, unfortunately.
I think Martin O'Neill is a director of football. If you asked me that question 10 years ago, nostalgia would still have played a part, and I would have been more for it. But the more that time goes on, the older that Martin is, and the more that we all understand how lacking we are as a club in a modern football structure, director of football is not a job, again, for a guy who's 73. It is, if done properly, not just a title for the sake of giving a job for one of the boys sort of thing. If done properly, the director of football is probably going to be the hardest job in the whole football club. If you do it properly.
We've got Tisdale, who was instrumental in recruiting Nonce, and we still need to find out what role Tisdale was bringing in terms of player recruitment, because at the moment, if he is responsible for Balagwisha and Tinekte, those sort of players, I'm not impressed. So I think
can I go on a tangent on that?
He needs to step up to the fore right now, because he might be the next one in the firing line to get sacked, at the end of this season, if things don't pick up recruitment wise. But getting rid of Tisdale doesn't address the bigger problem we've got right now. He just is the sacrificial lamb.
Yeah, and they all also used the signing of Engels and Ida. They used that as some sort of defense, like, we spent 20 million on 2 players. We show so much ambition. Yeah, but if you look at it, they are fairly decent players. But those 2 players, they could fund 2 Midtjylland teams.
Yeah.
And at the same time, those 2 players, they wouldn't get a game for Midtjylland.
Yeah. It's
It's
great.
about spending money intelligently. I wish we would do that.
That intelligently is what we don't do, Gavin, and those two players are prime examples of that as well, because you go back to what happened in the summer last year. We could have had both of those guys weeks, months earlier than they actually came in. And if you believe the stories and the rumours, and there has to be some merit to them, you could have got Engels for about 3 million less, and you could have probably picked up Adamida for about 4 million less as well. By all accounts, Adamida had a loan deal. I can't remember whose loan deal was going to be to. Was it an Italian club he was going to? I can't remember. Celtic came in and took the loan deal from under the leg sort of thing, but we didn't put in a buy now clause in. But the other team did have of something around about 5 million. As the season progressed on, Adamida's loan term, it became a bit more obvious that he was doing quite good at Celtic, and that 5 million became Norwich probably 7 million. And the more we kept dicking around and showing our hand that we were not looking at any other player, suddenly it became 9 million. We could have got him for nearly half the price. Engels could have been 7 or 8 million apparently, rather than 11 million if we paid the money earlier in the summer. I believe the same has just happened with Tenetki as well. We've probably paid about 1.5 million, 2 million more than we had to because we've left it so fucking late. So we aren't intelligent at all with that, Gavin, as you say. It's something that we really need to address. And to keep on at the kind of transfer thing and those two players plus Trusty, if you look at what Rodgers has said about last season and player recruitment stuff, as much as every one of us can admit that Adamida is not a great player, that Engels has not performed quite to the level that we'd expected him for an £11 million player, and that Trusty in parts has looked a bit naive, a bit of a bomb scare at times, but as Andy says earlier on, it's the best partnership we've got right now with skills, and it actually looks pretty solid. All three of them, Brendan Rodgers last year justified each of them individually in European competitions. Trusty defensively in Europe was great for us. Adamida's goals against Aston Villa, and he's complimented Engels numerous times in European football as well. He justified them. But you know what last summer happened? And this is something I think it was from Axel. I actually quite enjoyed listening to it at one point. And I've let the thought build in my head a bit more. Rodgers' first summer back, it was Mark Lowell and Joe Dudgeon, whatever his name is. And remember, he got sold the lie of, oh, it's all changed. Look how well we've done under Ange, yada, yada, yada. After the summer transfer window, and especially the winter window, all shit fucking fell down. And those two got fucking sacrificed and showing the door. Oh, fuck, we've made mistakes, guys. We'll learn from it. Here's two getting sacked, basically. Even sacked Peter Lawwell's fucking son. We had no head of scout, head recruitment, or whatever the fuck you want to call it. But your boy, Jay Lafrey, whatever his name is, seemingly he was the one running the entire recruitment thing last summer. And that's the three players that he identified and brought in. The club fucked up the deals for it. But look what happened last summer and last season. How good was last season in European football? We then bring in Paul Tisdale. And I'm not saying he's shit at his job. I'm not going to say that out and out because it's too short of a time period, and there's been some decent players that looks like came in. But Rodgers never got back to the way he wanted to this summer. He's not got the players he wanted. We've all seen the drama all summer in the interviews. But is it not a bit surprising that there was one period that actually worked well, and that one guy who was head of recruitment is now not at the club either?
Yeah.
Yet both sides bookmarked on the Brendan Rodgers tenure. Shite, good, shite.
I don't think recruitment was ever... Everybody's responsible for recruitment. I think collectively they've not been pulling their weight. And the fact that we may have allowed Brendan Rodgers some input into recruitment was probably misguided because he doesn't have an eye for a player. I think we can probably all agree on that Brendan Rodgers on the whole, that's not his forte, identifying players. Like Gordon Strachan was big enough to say that. Gordon Strachan was big enough to put his ego to the side and say identifying players is not my thing. If you bring in the players, I will work with them, I'll make them a team. But Brendan Rodgers likes to do a bit of everything. And obviously the other people, the supporting cast in terms of recruitment. It's just been a scattergun approach. But can I ask you guys about moving forward for the remainder of this league campaign? Has your expectations changed at all now that Martin O'Neill's came in, steadied the ship, and the recent loss of form with Hearts? And the added question of how important is the January transfer window to kind of see us through this, to try and I don't know if you want to say buy the title. We've got the squad right now to win the title, but we've still got a fight in our hands if Hearts regroup in January. So I guess to Andy, what's your expectations about the chances for the league title? And again, January transfer window, is it a big one for us?
It's a very big one. I'm a little bit more optimistic now after the job Martin O'Neill has done, but the January window is massive. We need at least 4 or 5 players, in my opinion, especially with half a team out injured.
Yeah, and some players going to Africa as well. What positions would you like to see targeted?
Oh, well, we have to start with the right wing, and also right back. I don't. I love Ralston, but I don't think he's. I don't think he's good enough to be a bench player. To be honest, I think we need to replace him.
I agree.
And also this one is extremely controversial, but I love James Forrest, but he must be on massive wages, and it's his last year, probably, and we need to. So I think we need 2 right wingers, maybe a striker. Iheanacho have been pretty decent, but I think we still need a striker.
Totally agree with the right wing. We should have done this beforehand. And the fact that we're coming to January, if the right player is available for a right winger, we should spend good money on them. I want a player with pace, a player with a bit of trickery. I'm not asking for the world here, but it can't be like an Abada where you've got tons of pace, but not much else apart from that to bring to the club. Somebody who would complement Jota on the right wing, somebody like that. I totally agree with you about Ralston. Ralston, we all love him, because he's just like a guy who got the chance to play for Celtic, but he's not blessed with talent. And I think that you can see, just even from these early days with Colby Donovan, that he's just got something about him. Where if you coach him and mold him, he could be the right back in years to come. But at the moment, he's very raw. Ralston, he's just so negative. Every time he gets the ball and wants to play it back, he's just got this kind of robotic thing where just negative.
And Hatata as well. I think he's off, so he needs probably needs replaced. Oh, and we can't just continue. It's such a swing and miss. We bring in so many players, but 10% are good. We need to be ruthless in this window.
I'm though encouraged about Rio Hatate under Martin O'Neill. I think that beforehand he was overcoached under Brendan Rodgers. He was told what to do and what not to do, and I felt that Brendan Rodgers kind of took away some of the flair that he offers. I think that he's improved under Martin O'Neill, and Wilfred Nancy, he might look at a player like Hatate and say, I can get the best out of you, I can give you a free role. He might do that, he might not do that. Hatate might want away because Kyogo's left, Maida wants to go. Hatate's probably going to be the next one, which will be a shame. But I think a massive one is centre forward. We might not buy a proper number 9 until the summer, because we've got Iheanacho probably until the end of the season. You've got Johnny Kenny. and Maida as well. Depends if we keep Maida. If Maida goes, then we probably have to buy a centre forward. But I'm sick because we used to have Giacomakis and Kyogo as the two players vying for the number 9 position, and look at where we are now. It's a poor alternative what we're at right now. I don't know if we're going to address it in January, but it has to be at the very latest the summer where we spend good money and a proper good centre forward. We get into so again, expectations for the league.
I think, as I was saying earlier, I think Nancy will come in and he'll do absolutely fine. I think the job that Martin and Sean have done, steadying the ship, getting the points in the bag, our hearts on the downward form just now as it's just been 2 bad games. Time will tell very soon whether or not they get that back on the road. But what we have got to the point of is completely in our hands now. The game in hand and the game coming up against Hearts means that we sit in the driving seat. It's ours to lose again rather than needing, at this point, any more favours. So I think we'll be all right for the league. I'm a lot more confident now than I was, mid-October. But it's going to, the long-term thing is going to come down to recruitment, especially in January. For me, I think it's one of the most important Januaries we've had in a long time because we have been so lacking 3, 4, 5 players every single window for God knows how long now. And it became so obvious how lacking it was with the quality and recruitment this summer that it's really quite desperate how much we need. And then if we're going to bring in the new manager who's going to want to play 3 at the back, centre-back becomes a massive issue here. I think we've been threadbare there for so long that we forget how much quality you really need in that position. I think we needed another 2 centre-backs. I agree with Ralston not being good enough as much as he plays his heart out and he's got all the passion in the world for it. But I'm not overly concerned about needing it replaced because I think Johnson's really good and I think Kobe Donovan, so long as he gets the game time that Ralston's been getting every season for the last few seasons, I would hope Donovan gets that same level of game time from the bench, obviously, and we can see his development quite rapidly in the next, year and a half, and then we can judge him properly at that point. But centre-backs for me is a big place. Left-back, I can happily wait until the summertime because we do have KT there and Sriracha looks pretty fucking solid. Midfield still needs fixed. There's so many midfielders there. As boys are saying, Hatati's likely to be off pretty soon along with Maeda. We need to fix that whole entire midfield. Don't know what the system looks like under Nancy going forward, but something needs done to fix it. We've got 6 players who all look to be the same. If we're now going to play with just 2 central midfielders instead of 3, then we've got way too many and not enough quality as such. And I hate to say that because I think all 6 of them actually are decent players. But that right wing as well, guys, as you said, I know you cut back and Gav, but that right wing is woeful. As Taneki steps it up and can play the right side and Jota comes back the player we expect, then it's not as drastic, but we're lacking in the wide area so much, especially on the right side.
That kind of, listen to you guys talk about it, it's kind of made me think that an earlier point that I made about whenever a new manager comes in, sometimes the danger is that you want to change too much too soon. And I think that when you are talking about the quality in the squad, I think the obvious thing is that we're lacking in quality personnel on the wings, and that's fullbacks as well as wingers and wide forwards. And I think maybe going to a 3-4-3 isn't best suited to the playing squad that we've got right now, which makes me think maybe the new manager won't implement that formation change right away until we start to see new players coming in to give us that width. Because if we go to a back 3, we're spreading ourselves too thin straight away. Because your only dependency is on Dane Murray coming off the bench if somebody gets an injury or whatever. I don't think. I'm just thinking that the evidence suggests that he might not go to that change straight away, because we'll be shooting ourselves in the foot right now. We can win games the way that we're playing. Then maybe Nancy can coach people, coach methods of working the ball up the park, but maybe not change the formation too soon. Something that we're not used to. So why do something so drastic at the early start of his tenure?
Yeah, and also will Nygren and Iheanacho be able to press, like they did under Ange?
Yeah.
That is also the question, and if the answer is no, there we are in trouble.
I'm not sure about Nygren. I think that depends on the formation. I don't see him fitting in a straight up midfield pair because I think he's much better as a number 10. I don't know if that suits the 3-4-3 thing going on. But as you see with Iheanacho, I don't see that pressing him at all. And I think Iheanacho, the way that he came to the club, obviously after the window had closed, he was a Brendan Rodgers kind of black book kind of signing, the same way that he had to dip into the contacts to get Casper in. I think Iheanacho might be gone in the winter window, let alone even the summer window. I believe his contract's only at 1 year with an option of the second year. I definitely don't see that being extended, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him show him the door. The problem we might have with getting him out the door early in January is he's probably on the highest wages, if not up there with the likes of Callum and Tierney. You don't bring in a guy like Iheanacho with his overall CV, shall we say, and not expect to be paying pretty high dollar for that. I mean, we're not breaking bank by paying him a good wage, but I think he'd be one of the higher earners that the club would happily move on if they could. The issue there is, we go back to Andy, how big January is going to be. We don't have any fucking striker then, do we?
Do you think? Yeah, go on.
do we count Kenny still or not? I feel like we're being harsh if we don't count him, but at the same time, you can't really count on Johnny Kenny to be your main striker when you're still playing in Europe and still trying to win a domestic league. I don't think we can rely on Kenny in that sense. So striker's probably quite important again.
Do you think we will lose Maeda in the January, or?
I think it's high chance that we do lose both him and Hatai. And I see Plunge brought it up. People who are hoping that they leave. I don't hope they leave at all. I think two of them, I would love both of them to stay for many more years. But the reality is, I think Dyson and Rio are likely to leave. January probably quite likely, especially Dyson considering he's halfway down the M6 by all accounts. Almost as bad as the Jackie McNamara situation. I think Dyson was. He admitted he'd already packed his locker up and stuff and was out the door. So I don't see how you keep that kind of player. And maybe you can sneak him to the summertime, but he's not staying longer than this year.
And Yang is probably away as well.
Yeah, more than likely. I mean, Yang's actually looked not too bad the last couple of games. He has these spells where he comes off the bench for a half dozen games, and you start thinking, is the player going to be there? But then something happens that rocks his confidence or something. But again, Yang was all but gone by all accounts as well. So yeah, I think it's a good changeover in personnel is going to happen in the next 6 months.
I was going to say with Maeda, I've been hoping that because we've been holding him against his will for so long now, that he's going to develop Stockholm syndrome and he'll want to just stay at Celtic and not want away in the January transfer window.
We can all but hope.
Yeah, I hope so. I must say, Dyson, he's one of my favorite players ever. I absolutely love him.
Aye. Guys, I was thinking of. I need to brush up on my segues, but there was another kind of topic that I was going to bring up, and it's not so much about the playing style, but it was about a message, a statement that Celtic released earlier on today on their website, and it was about the suspension of the Green Brigade has now been extended, And so Celtic met with the safety advisors for the group of the safety advisors group from Glasgow City Council. They met them on Friday, the 28th of November, and they've come to the decision that that's going to be extended, that suspension, and that will involve closing the first 6 rows of the front section of the rail seating section at Celtic Park, and furthermore suspend the Green Brigade's season tickets and access to tickets at Celtic Park, and also for away matches. And that ban will remain until the club is satisfied that it can engage with the Green Brigades. McGinty, it's another symptom of the kind of the turmoil at the club in terms of the division. We knew that there was a division always there between the fans and some section of the fans and the club. But it seems like this rift between the Green Brigades and the board is not getting any better. It's widening further. Obviously, they had put in that ban, but the Green Brigades, the accusation is now that the conduct of those individuals against Falkirk, when 100 members involved themselves in an incident in an alleged violent and threatening manner. And the club have then said that the Green Brigade did not comply with the suspension following that incident because they attended the next home game against Kilmarnock. And then following that, just before the AGM, the accusation from the club is that 2 members of the Green Brigade approached the head of safety prior to the AGM and threatened him and sought to intimidate. Now, obviously, there's always 2 sides to a story, but the club are in charge of this matter right now, and especially whenever it falls under a health and safety regulation, they hold all the power over the Green Brigade regarding this. How do you think this power play is going to unfold?
Short term, the club's going to win. As you say, they've got the power, they're going to use health and safety, they're just going to throw rules and regulations at the support of the Green Brigade, and they're just going to run over them roughshod. Long term, this is desperation from the board. This is pathetic. This is, all they're doing is they think they're creating a divide and conquer situation with the fans. They're hoping that the fair weather fan, the fans who are a bit kind of like, oh, I know something's not quite right and I want some change, but also I just want to go to the football. They're hoping that middle ground fan, they can just put the wedge right between us, separate the two, and just pin all. They tried it with Rodgers. All of the issues of the last 8 months was all Rodgers' fault when it came to football and issues. All the issues on protests and fan rebellion, it's all the Green Brigades. It's big bad Green Brigade. Is it fuck? None of what's happening protest-wise or is it has any real. It's not the Green Brigade all doing this. I'm not a Green Brigade member, and I've been beating the fucking drum about how pathetic this club is ran for years upon years. At that AGM, we've seen all the videos and the pictures and stuff. That wasn't young boys trying to sneak into the standing section with a big flag going, way, party time, let's sneak in a bottle of bucky. That was 50, 60-year-old guys, grey-haired, bald, holding up red cars, protesting and booing that thing. That was, what's her name? Jeanette Finlay from the Celtic Trust, who I apologise if she ever hears this, but I'm going to say she's on the other side of 40 than what I'm on just now. She's no a young gun trying to make a name for herself. She's a hardened supporter of our club, and she's pissed off and pig sick of this shit. And she was bullied by Peter Lowell for daring to ask him to move on from a fucking propaganda puff piece so they could actually get onto pressing issues, because they knew, we knew, there's shit going on at that AGM. So when you read the bullet points there, Gavin, 2 members of the Green Brigade who regularly represent the group at safety operational meetings, blah, 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 AGM, threatened and sought to intimidate him. Prove it. Not you, Gavin. Pull up the club. Prove it.
But they don't need to prove it.
But they do, because there's too many people like me, and I believe Andy, from what I can see from his reaction as well, who are sick of this as well. Prove that they intimidated him. Because I don't trust the board or the club in a single word that they say. As you say, Gavin, there's two sides to all these stories, and the grey area in the middle is probably where it all lands. But prove your statements. They've said that Falkirk thing, but they've not shown you the video of the concourse. Yet, you know what I have seen since then? I've seen a fucking 10-year-old boy being pulled by the collar and the neck under no pressure from anybody else underneath those staircases at that corner of the stand. And where's the condemnation for that? I've seen evidence of the club doing wrong. I've not seen evidence of the Green Brigade doing wrong.
I don't know what the context of that video was, but I just think in these incidents that I know that people want to side with the fans and they want to go against the board, but for that incident where the 100 fans or so ran into the concourse, whenever a thing like that happens and there might not be CCTV inside the concourse.
But there is. At that point of the stadium, there's loads of CCTV in that point of the stadium. That is heavily monitored.
What do you mean from outside?
I just find it, it's absolute nonsense. The only thing they want to do is to silence the ones that lead the protests, and they are welcome back when they are pro-establishment.
Exactly, and let's just again, of the points of reasoning for extending the suspension, what point? Why? They're reiterating the Falkirk game, which was the last straw that brought the suspension, and then they're making up the AGM issue, prove it, but they're also bringing in the Green Brigade didn't abide by the suspension that we put in place. Sorry, but that sounds like a fucking you problem for not implementing it properly. What did you expect was going to happen there? Why is the Green Brigade, and I hate that I'm defending the Green Brigade because overall I couldn't give two fucks about the Green Brigade, and I don't mean that too negatively against individual Green Brigade members. I just mean they make no difference to me on a day-to-day. They bring good fanfare and they bring good support to the club and the squad, and I'm happy and I'm grateful that they're there in that sense. But if they're not there, I don't lose any sleep over it. I don't really give a fuck overall. But I will defend them when it looks like they're being fucking victimised and they're being used as a fucking pawn in this whole entire fucking thing.
So do you think that you're talking about divide and conquer and that they're maybe attacking them and they're vilifying them because of some of the protests? So do you think that they're then going to turn their attention to the boys in the other section of the stadium? Do you think they're going to somehow entrap them as well?
Yeah, I think so. They won't stop with the Green Brigade.
I agree. They've moved from Rodgers trying to blame him and the Desmond fucking personal attack that he used the club media to put that out on, which is a whole podcast in itself of why Desmond can go fuck himself on that one. They tried to blame Rodgers. It didn't work. The protests kept going. They realised it wasn't just that the fans were bored of football. Then they're trying to paint it as the rebellious young ones. It isn't. It's not going to work. It's clearly not working. The whole Celtic collective thing that was going on, the fan collective, it's really early. It's in its infancy. It will get bigger and stronger as the season, as the years progress. This change is going to happen, and this board are going to get. I mean, they're not going to get bullied in the way that the Desmonds want to pretend that they're fucking bullied. They're billionaires. They've never been bullied a day in their fucking life. But the board as a collective, as an overall, they're going to waking up one day and realise this is their fucking club. This isn't their fucking toy. This is ours.
Look, I've got a slightly different opinion to you guys on it. Now, I'm not a board apologist.
Yeah.
However, on this particular issue, now, the other thing that we need to kind of be mindful of is that Glasgow City Council do have a say, and that a certificate is issued to Celtic to have this standing section. And if Celtic are not able to demonstrate conclusively that they're meeting all the kind of health and safety standards, then that certificate will be in jeopardy. So you've got a club who are trying to impose regulations and you've got a group of fans who they don't want to recognise that authority.
Yeah, I understand that as well, and I agree. But the only thing I want is for the board for once to try to protect the fans. You know, even if you look at the Rangers, I hate to use them as an example, but the Union Bears, they cause chaos on a regular basis, and the Rangers board, that they at least sometimes try to defend the fans, but not Celtic. They go against the fans every single time. That's my main problem.
Yeah, I agree with that, Andy, as well, and that's been for decades as well. You know, I'm not saying pyros are correct or wrong, and I'm not saying that they should defend the fans for it, but there's things like the Palestine flags we get into trouble for UEFA. I get that the club can't come out and publicly be like, "Yay, keep flying that flag, guys." I get that they're not going to be clapping along and saying, "Get the pyros on this top of the stands, let's fucking get at it." I get they're not going to go ball deep into it, but at the same time, when they come out with the statements of, you know, we've been punished and fined again for that, it's always like the next line is, fans need to appreciate that this can't keep going on, sort of thing. It's like, just announce that we've got fined and leave it. Stop trying to put the wee dig into the fans, because you know the fans are going to keep doing pyros unless you organise it so that they can. And I mean that in a positive sense, not a, you know, kicking lumps out of them before they empty a bag for you. They need to work with the fans to give them something, because the fans want to be vibrant, they want to be colourful, they want to be loud. Work with them as opposed to just constantly working against them in some way. I don't know what the answer to pyros is. I don't know what the answer is to flying Palestine flags when some people don't want them at the steam. I don't know what the actual answer is, because one side, as you say, Gavin, one side's not going to give up, and the other side's, you know, they're just going to constantly be like that. Somebody at some point has to give a wee inch and work with each other, show a bit of fucking appreciation to the other side.
Yeah, I think you've got like I wouldn't say an unstoppable force against an immovable object, but you've got two very, very stubborn parties.
Yeah.
But I think the power does reside with Celtic, because the Green Brigade can continue to flout these rules, and the club can come down with harsher and harsher punishments and eventually take away their season tickets, which is a shame, but that's perhaps one route. I am trying to kind of, whenever you're on a Celtic podcast, I totally appreciate that you guys are being genuine to your opinions, and sometimes there is a kind of temptation to kind of go along with the flow, but I am just kind of trying to kind of talk out my kind of thought process in this one. But I don't know if the Green Brigade are capable of meeting the club halfway. Now, it'd be nice if they could get round the table and come to an agreement and a way forward. And obviously the club and their lack of defence of the fans, that could be improved upon, that position. I remember walking down London Road after I parked my car, walking towards the game, and I saw the police had kettled the Green Brigade after they came out of the Celtic Supporters Club. And it was just a bad image. And they weren't even allowed into the stadium, because I remember coming back after the game and they were still there, still kettled.
That's even that point there, that wasn't all just Green Brigade. There were young children there. There was older guys there. This wasn't just the young Green Brigade big bad. This was, and again, as Anne says, I get that. Sorry, Gavin, I'm standing on your toes again. I get that it's not the club's place to tell the police what to do, but they can still, as an institution and a power that they are, they can defend the fans to some degree, instead of just washing our hands. There was a review, it wasn't our fault, we had nothing to do, we didn't know it. You can at least still come out and say, look, we condemn the actions, it wasn't right or appropriate, we apologise that this happened and you could get into the game, young people shouldn't be held that way, blah blah blah. We will work with the police in better ways to whatever way that may be. It could be a bit more positive.
I guess just one other point where when you're kind of trying to kind of search for a middle ground and the truth. The other thing is that when I look at the Green Brigade, I don't identify with them. I can't relate to them when I see them wearing balaclavas and marching towards the stadium, like there's some sort of kind of mini little army. It's like, you know how confident you are when you're in a big group. That's the kind of the image that they give off. And see, whenever I go to the stadium, I've said this before in the podcast, and if I was to look to my left and my right, and there's a guy next to me wearing a fucking balaclava, I'm like, why are you here? What is your modus operandi here? Like, what are you getting from this? I'm here to watch the game. It looks like you're here for something else. You think you're a bit of a ticket. A lot of them are young boys, and they've got that kind of that hoodlum mentality where they're very, very brave when they're in a group, and they love to be raucous. The singing is fantastic, but see, whenever they've got no respect for other Celtic fans, and by the way, the people I sit next to, when I talk to them, they've got the same opinion as me about the Green Brigade. A lot of them are just, the majority are a bunch of young boys who don't really have respect for other Celtic fans, and they think that they're almost better than other Celtic fans. And
Yeah.
that's how I struggle to respect them, and why I struggle to defend them.
I don't think how good, how well the board will do. They will never they will never accept the board.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm with you there. It's not like they will just turn switch to being good guys all of a sudden. All the ultras groups are problematic at every club in all over Europe.
They are, and I think this is where we, not us three individuals, but as a collective, as a support and a club overall, we need to stop. And this is what the club's trying to do. This is what the board's trying to do. This whole divide and conquer. This isn't the overall thing. Isn't a Green Brigade issue. The club are focusing in on this health and safety regulations, Green Brigade issue, and making the big deal about this, when the actual big issue that's really pissing off the support is beyond fucking children in balaclavas thinking the hard men. And I know that the core of the Green Brigade is not those people. That's more like the hanger-oners. But that's the image that the club want to paint it as, when the reality is the issues surrounding the club and the fans who are angry are so much more varied and larger than that. And if the club can address some of those issues and fix things, then the Green Brigade and the Ultras, they just become the Ultras again on the side, who are going to cause a bit of chaos and cause a bit of a noise. And as Andy says, they're always going to be the menaces in the corner, and they're always going to be there. That's fine as an Ultra group. That's fine. But everything else is bigger than that just now. It's so much more than that, and I don't think the club fucking realise this yet, somehow.
Right. Will we move on to the Celtic and Dundee game? Martin O'Neill's last hurrah. So it's Wednesday, and we're against Dundee. They're 9th in the league. They played 14, won 3, drawn 3, lost 8. They scored 12 goals and conceded 25. However, at the weekend, Dundee came from behind to beat St Mirren 3-1 at Dens Park on Sunday. Now, they will certainly spoil the party if they come away with a point at Parkhead on Wednesday. The players cannot fuck it up this time for Martin O'Neill. Not that they have done so; they've held true. But Martin O'Neill deserves to go out on a high, and I really sincerely hope that he does. Andy, what's your thoughts on Wednesday night? Will it be an easy one? Will it be a tough fought game?
It will be a statement win. I just can't see anything else than that.
Nice. That's what I want to hear. Do you think any emotion will get in terms of the players' heads? Or do you think that they'll play the game, not the occasion, just play the game, and as you say, a big statement win? So you think it'll be a fairly easy one, and Martin O'Neill will guide them to a high-scoring victory?
Yeah. I can't see anything else than a statement win. You know, that the players, everyone seemed to love him. Did you see the interview today with Luke Macau, and he spoke about O'Neill as well? And you know, everyone will want to thank him.
Aye. For Luke McCowan, like, he's obviously younger than us, so he's still in his maybe mid to late 20s. So he would have been a child whenever Martin O'Neill was a manager. So he'd probably remember more from like the videos and things like that rather than actual lived experience, lived experiences. But it must be funny being coached by Martin O'Neill. For somebody that your father, your uncles would have regaled you with stories about. But so McGinty for Wednesday night.
I think it'll be a good game. I think the players will give their all for Martin and Sean, knowing that it is the last one. I'm not going to sit here and say it's going to be an emphatic win, because the same issues that they've played this entire season are still there with the players' overall quality. But I think they'll give as best they can tomorrow night. I firmly believe we will win reasonably comfortable, maybe a 2-0 or 3-1 sort of level. I think it'll be an easier game than what the Hibs game was.
Andy, what's your lineup for Wednesday night? Who would you play?
Tunekti, Maeda, and I would even consider going with Nygren, right wing.
Nygren, okay.
He have not been the best at that position, but I want to see him more there, especially now when we are light there.
Mm-hmm.
He had played there quite a bit for Sweden's national team, and when he played in Denmark, he was pretty good there. So I want to see him more in that position.
I think Taneki is better at Parkhead sometimes. I wouldn't have trusted him at Easter Road, but I would have more faith in him at Parkhead. Who would be your midfield three?
I would go with Hatate, McGregor, and Engels.
Yeah. I don't think you can drop Engels, and McGregor, and Hatate's been quite good so far.
And I have been, I have wanted to see Bernardo more, but I must admit that Hatate has been pretty good in the last couple of games.
Yeah. In defense,
I would go with Sarachi, Scales, Rusty, and Donovan.
Yeah, can't argue with that. McGinty, any variations to that lineup?
Not massively. I'll trust Andy and his knowledge of Nygren and playing the right. However, I just don't see it. He looks so much more natural as that kind of number 10 for me, and I would like to see him there more. But as things stand, obviously right wing is an issue for us, so I wouldn't be against him being out on the right. However, I would wonder if maybe it's Taneki, Maeda, Yang is the kind of front three rather than Nygren. Midfield and backline, absolutely exactly as Andy says. And I know it's not going to happen, but I would play Sinisalo a bit more often nowadays over Kasper Schmeichel, because I think I said it last season, at the end of the last season and at the start of this one, we need to be really careful with Kasper, because as he starts getting to that edge of the cliff sort of thing, the drop off is going to be drastic once he goes over the edge of just losing that little bit of whatever he's got that makes him a really fantastic goalkeeper. I think we're getting quite close to it. I think there's maybe you don't drop him straight away, but I think we need to start bringing Sinisalo back into first team action to smooth this transition over, because I can see Kasper dropping pretty soon.
Well, he saved us in the game at Easter Road. He had a very good save.
He did. I can't deny that. And that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying he's quite there yet, but I think we need to really start preparing for, because there is signs at times. There's signs that he's lost an edge. He's lost a bit of sharpness at times. But then again, you get the Hibs game and he made a couple of good saves actually.
Fair dues. Right, guys, we've actually went past the hour and a half mark that we thought that would be for tonight's podcast. I've got one final question. We're approaching the 2 hour mark, so we might actually get to that. Andy, I've got this thing where when I'm hosting a podcast, sometimes I say, oh, it'll only be 1 hour, but we end up doing 3 hours. So we won't go for 3 hours, but I think we're certainly sailing towards the 2 hour mark. Before I ask the final question of the night, I've got to say, for your first time doing a podcast with us, I think you've been absolutely terrific. You've been brilliant, and me and McGinty are delighted that we've actually found someone who is happy to join us for a podcast, and we would definitely want you on again. You've been fantastic, so thank you for that. Have you enjoyed it so far?
Oof, it has been extremely nervy. but I must admit it has been. I have been very nervous, but the positive is it can only get better. It's I have never done anything like it. So and especially with the English and all that, not my mother's tongue, but so it is nervy, but it has been fun.
Good.
You've taken to it like a duck to water, as we would say here. Right. The final question is: once the dust has settled, how will we look back on Brendan Rodgers as a whole? Kind of like whenever Neil Lennon left us for the last time. You don't just judge him for that part, but as a whole, Brendan Rodgers as a whole, or is it still too early? Is the emotion still raw? Will it take a bit of time before we can judge him in the true light of day? Anybody want to go for that?
I think there might be a Fergus McCann kind of passing of time will be gentle and will really reveal quite a lot. I think Rodgers' first tenure, you can't argue the invincible season, set us up for a treble. He's undoubtedly a very good coach, football manager, whatever you want to call him. There's no doubt about it. When he first came to us, first tenure, he was absolutely elite as far as we could see. And I can appreciate some people would bring that term down a little bit after his second term, especially the way football had been played since March, which is disappointing. But I think there's a lot of reasons for that if you read between the lines, you want to go down a little bit of a rabbit hole in conspiracies, and you want to look into what's happening at the club overall. I think there's reasons for how things have panned out. We've still not heard from him yet, which is quite surprising. I think we'll hear stuff in snippets as the months and the years go on, and I think in due course it'll be a bit like Fergus McCann, where when he first came in and he first left, a lot of people were a bit pissed off with him, and then a lot of people started realising just how much good work Fergus McCann actually done. And I'm not going to say Brendan Rodgers is like some sort of fucking a hero behind the scenes that we never knew was there, sort of thing. But I think in the due course of time, I think we'll look back on Brendan Rodgers, both tenures, quite fine.
So time will be a healer in this regard.
Yeah. And absolutely not a healer when it comes to Neil Lennon. If you're going to bring that one back up to me, I'm still holding that one tight.
Yeah. Andy, where do you stand?
He has been an absolutely fantastic manager for Celtic, but I have a strange, strange relationship with him, if you can say that. I have never trusted him in the transfer market. Is one thing, but he has been a great coach, a great manager, and all that, and and the next day I think he's arsehole. He's a complicated, a really complicated guy. I have I have always loved him as a manager, but never really liked him. There's always been something fishy about him.
Yeah, I don't think anybody ever believed the the Clyde Tunnel story of
Oh yeah, did you hear that one, Andy? The Clyde Tunnel story?
The Danny McRae story, no?
No,
There's a different multiples.
I think he might have told that on the same night. But the Clyde Tunnel story was.
No, tell me.
It's when he first joined Celtic as a manager back in about 2016, and this was after him being the Liverpool manager. So his stock was quite high. He had a high reputation, at least in Scotland. Maybe not with Liverpool fans, but he was in a traffic jam. He was in his car in the Glasgow Clyde Tunnel, and he says that a Rangers fan in the car next to him rolled down his window and he said to him, by the way, I'm a Rangers fan, but I'm so glad that you've came to Scotland to manage Celtic because it raises our game. So yeah,
I'm gonna tell you a funny story now that you said Rangers fan. This is a true story. I had a bunch of Rangers fans once in the pub at Kings Park Hotel. It was the second time I went to Glasgow, and a huge bar fight broke loose. I wasn't involved in it. I just sat in a corner, and I had a Celtic top on underneath the jacket. And those guys saw it, and they made fun of me. But when the fight broke loose, the Rangers fans helped me out and protected me.
Oh.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting that ending.
I need to ask you, how did you end up at the Kings Park Hotel, of all places, when you visit Glasgow?
Oh, I could write a book about the crazy things that has happened. If you have time, I can go for a wee rant.
Not tonight. I'm looking at that time for 2 hours.
For the next time. The next time.
I asked that because Kings Park Hotel is obviously in Rutherglen, and that's where me and Gavin both grew up, and James as well, not too far away from it. So we do know the area, and we know the type of people who would have broken out in that fight.
Oh, they broke pool cues, and they stabbed.
Yeah.
They didn't hit each other, but almost, and they threw balls, straight through the walls.
Yep.
And my mate, he ran with he had a plate on his hand with 4 beers on it, and he didn't spill a drop. That was the most impressive thing. And I was I was in shock. There was glass everywhere, and I just told the bar lady, what the fuck, what happened? She just said, that's just an ordinary Saturday night.
Yeah. The Kings Park Hotel in Rutherglen. Yep.
Well, that's a great way to finish off the podcast. Andy, again, you've been fantastic tonight, and we hope to get you back for whenever the next episode is. To everybody in the comments, thank you for making this a memorable night for the Jungle Gyms after our hiatus for about 2 years. But we're back, and we hope to be regular. So, Beginty, have you enjoyed it tonight?
I have indeed, as always. It's always nice to be on a podcast and get some ranting and raving about the board and, my usual nonsense.
The first of many. Well, yes. I think we've covered as many topics as we could, but obviously Celtic kick off at Parkhead on Wednesday night, Martin O'Neill's final game. So we hope for a positive result. And then before we know it, Wilfred Nonsey, who, according to the comments here, he's already arrived in Glasgow, who knows, but Wilfred Nonsey will be taking charge at Celtic Park as the next official manager against a massive clash, top of the table clash against Hearts. And before he knows it, he's going to have a cup final as well to contend with against St Mirren. So the calendar is getting fast and furious. And the Jungle Gyms will be back for more. So again, to everybody in the comments, thank you for joining us. We're going to finish up for tonight. But good night. God bless.
Thank you.